All right, so customer acquisition costs versus lifetime value of a customer. These are very important numbers to know. A lot of times you may not know these numbers in advance because these numbers might be something that you learn over time or that you could get from your peers potentially. But what you're trying to figure out is, with all the money I spent on advertising and all the leads that that advertising generates, what is that customer acquisition cost? Okay, so this would be all the money spent on advertising, the number of new customers, because we're tracking it, right? All right, it came through this magazine, it came through this newspaper, it came through this commercial we did, it came through this Google ad we did, okay? However, so you're tracking all these leads, right? So you're tracking where they all came from, all right? And then you're gonna take your total dollar amount spend and you're gonna divide it by the number of new customers you get. Now you're gonna have your customer acquisition cost, okay? So now you know how much it costs you to acquire a new customer. The cool part is, if you know the lifetime value of that customer, and the way you would figure that out is you would know how much money per month they're going to spend, and on average, how many months they're going to be with you. If you can figure out those numbers, you're going to be able to come up with the lifetime value of that customer. And the lifetime value of that customer might be 18 grand or 20 grand or 25,000 if they're with you for 18 months or 24 months or 36 months, or what is that average length of time, right? Again, you might be able to survey your peers and figure out this data out. You might be able to ask, a friend or someone in the industry to say, hey, would you be willing to share with me your average length of time that someone stays with you, right? And then you can figure out, okay, well, if this is the average length of time that they stay with us, like, what is the average that they spend maybe at that location, right? So you could kind of reformat this formula based on your numbers and come up with that lifetime value of the customer. Once you know that, then the goal is to make sure that, okay, well, if each customer can potentially generate $18,000 or $20,000 in revenue for me, okay? And then I know that my margin on that is like 20 to 30% is my net, right? Then is there like how much? So let's take simple math. Say 10,000 is the lifetime value of a customer, $10,000, right? And you take 30% of that would be $3,000. Now, if it cost you $1,000 to get one customer that netted you $3,000, would that make sense, right? And the reason why I'm saying 30% is, like, let's say that's your margin. Say that's what you would net, because you have a net margin of 30%. You would net 3,000 on that 10,000 on that customer. Would it make sense for you to spend $1,000 to acquire that new customer that earned you 3,000? That might make sense. Now, if it costs $3,000 to acquire that customer, that may not make sense because there's no margin in that, right? So this is it's very important to know these numbers because it'll give you more confidence when you spend more money on advertising that you're putting money into the right place, This will really help you understand, like, okay, well, if I'm spending this much per month, is it really worth it? Well, if you know how much you're spending and you know what a customer will generate you and you know your margins on that customer, then this is just simple math and you could be like, oh yeah, if I spend $1,000 a month, that's a good investment, right? Because there's a return on that investment. Or you might say, well, I shouldn't spend that much. I'm spending way too much because I'll never be able to recoup that with the based on the lifetime value and my margin, of that customer, right? So it's important to understand these things.